Our next speaker is Michelle Fuson with Latah County Planning. Thanks for being here, Michelle.
Hi, thanks. Okay, so let's talk about water rights in Idaho. They're a little bit different than water rights in Washington, probably a little bit more generous, and people can still qualify to get them, unlike most of the basins in Washington that are all closed. So all of the water in Idaho, as Troy had mentioned, in Washington is essentially owned by the state. You are granted rights to use the water, either exempt rights or permitted rights to use the water that's owned by the state of Idaho. Typically, if you have a house and a well, those are going to be exempt from having to get special permission to use the water. You could, with those, you can irrigate a ½ an acre of land and you can use up to 13,000 gallons a day. If you have any other uses that, like, for example, you don't have a land, you want to do an industrial use without a water right, you could use up to 2,500 gallons a day. To get water in Idaho, you can get it in all kinds of ways. You could collect surface runoff, roof collection, diversion from a creek, stream, tributary. You know, you might need some special permissions to do that. Pump from a well, a pond, a river, a lake. Usually collection is best in the spring, obviously, but you're going to need that water during the hot months of summer. And so you're going to have to figure out a way to store that. Do you need or want a water right? Well, 13,000 gallons a day is a lot of water. So if you have a home there and you're not going to have a production area greater than a ½ an acre, I would say just go with the exempt use. You could get the water right just to make sure that you secure your right in time. But if you look at the water usage I put on here, people use a couple hundred gallons a day at the most. Your animals are using very little, and even your crops are going to be maybe 5,000 or 6,000 gallons a week, depending on how many inches of water that you need. Whenever you're planning for your water use, make sure to consider doing conservation techniques, you know, using drip irrigation. Make that water go as long as you can, because as was stated previously, a lot of people have concerns about water because they have low production of water, and it's hard to capture and store water. And pumping it, while it seems like a good idea from a groundwater perspective, a lot of wells may only produce a couple gallons a minute. So again, you're into storage. And so really focus on conservation. But if you decide that, yes, I want to go all in, I have 5 acres, I want to plant it all to apples or plums or some kind of crop, get your water right. Think about how you're going to use your water in the most efficient manner. I put links in the chat, and I have information at the end of the presentation of how to go through the process with the Idaho Department of Water Resources. The things that you should know is that the state will just put preset amounts in there. Make sure that you don't put the preset amounts in there. Make sure that you put what you're actually going to use. And that's beneficial both to you and to the people around you, because when you're thinking about using water, especially groundwater for production purposes, you have to think about what's happening to my neighbors. Are they using this domestically, this water, and will my use deplete their water? And so how can I minimize and protect in the types of aquifers that we have in Latah County, which are usually not recharged very quickly at all? How can we make sure that we can spread that water for as long as we can and use the minimum amount, but still get the things that we need out of it? And so, you know, there's always a chance that a neighbor might protest the water right that you apply for with the state. And if they do, typically what happens is you negotiate with them to try to come up with the best thing. So that's another good reason to make sure that you are putting in realistic amounts for what you're actually going to use and to try to do your best with conservation techniques. Most of Latah County has been adjudicated and or is in the process of being adjudicated. And so depending on where you are, you can apply for a water right, or you'll have to apply to be part of the adjudication area. And so that's just a matter of contacting the state Idaho Department of Water Resources. I think that's probably it.
Great, thank you, Michelle.